One of the things that Disneyland fans are often looking to be announced is a new Tomorrowland project to give the land a new refresh. In 2019, a new entrance for Tomorrowland was announced, leading some to believe the land would receive its much needed refresh, but instead the work was partially completed. Yet Disney has recently reverted back to its method of updating whole lands by closing them off and reopening them fully renovated, often with a new attraction, as seen in Mickey's Toontown. So let's go over every new blank land at Disneyland to see what we need to get a new Tomorrowland again. When Disneyland opened in 1955, Tomorrowland was the most underdeveloped land, only opening with Autopia and several exhibitions like the Monsanto Hall of Chemistry and the Kaiser Aluminum Hall of Fame, whilst Rocket to the Moon opened a week later. In 1959, Tomorrowland received an expansion in the form of a Matterhorn, the submarine lagoon and the monorail, which helped push the land along. By 1966, Tomorrowland was looking stale compared to what had opened at the New York World's Fair, so much so that Walt Disney referred to it as Yesterland. In 1966, Tomorrowland was closed in order to receive a full refurbishment. Unfortunately, Walt Disney passed away in December 1966, leaving his Imagineering team to complete New Tomorrowland. On July 2, 1967, New Tomorrowland opened with an updated Rocket to the Moon, now named Flight to the Moon to reference the Apollo program. Having debuted at the 1964-65 World's Fair, the Carousel of Progress also opened in Tomorrowland towards the back of the land, although it would only last in Disneyland until 1973 before it moved to Walt Disney World. In the centre of the land, guests could find the People Mover, taking guests on a scenic trip around Tomorrowland. Located above the People Mover track was the Rocket Jets, an elevated version of the former Star Jets. A month later, on August 5, 1967, Adventure Through Inner Space opened in the show building where the former 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea exhibition and Hall of Chemistry were located. It was Disneyland's first Omnimover attraction, shrinking guests down to the size of a molecule to explore a snowflake. In 1967, New Tomorrowland was a huge success and would keep the same aesthetics for another 30 years, whilst adding new attractions like Space Mountain and Star Tours to keep the land fresh. By 1982, Disneyland's Fantasyland was now growing outdated, with its fairground theme and compact nature. It was in desperate need of a refurbishment. So, in 1982, Fantasyland closed to be transformed into New Fantasyland, seeing the official closure of Captain Hook's Galley and the Fantasyland Theatre. When the land reopened, each Dark Ride's exterior was redesigned to fit the attraction's theme, while Snow White's Adventures was renamed Snow White's Scary Adventures to indicate the scary elements of the attraction. For better crowd management, several attractions were moved around. The King Arthur Carousel was moved to the former location of the Mad Tea Party, and the Mad Tea Party moved closer to Alice in Wonderland. Meanwhile, Dumbo the Flying Elephant moved to where Captain Hook's Galley was, so the former location could open up a path to Frontierland. The main highlight of New Fantasyland was Pinocchio's Daring Journey, a dark ride retelling the story of Pinocchio. This version of Fantasyland remained to this day with only a few updates, proving a successful refurbishment. From one successful refurb to an unsuccessful one. In 1990, a new Tomorrowland refurbishment was announced as part of the Disney Decade, set to open in 1994. However, the plans were never set in stone and continually changed, leading to the new Tomorrowland getting delayed. This meant that several attractions were closed throughout the decade, including Mission to Mars, the People Mover, and the Rocket Jets. On May 22, 1998, the second New Tomorrowland opened in Disneyland, complete with a new rustic paint scheme inspired by Disneyland Paris's Discoveryland. The entrance to the land now featured the Astro Orbiter, moved down from the People Mover platform as it was too heavy for the platform. Mission to Mars was transformed into a new eatery, Red's Rocket Pizza Port, whilst the Magic Eye Theatre received the relatively new Honey I Shrunk the Audience 4D film. The major new e-ticket is part of New Tomorrowland were the rocket rods, a high-speed race around Tomorrowland on the old People Mover tracks. However, as the track was not banked, the ride vehicles kept slowing down at corners, causing the system to be overwhelmed and the attraction to have extended downtime. The attraction would only operated for a year and a half before permanently closing, leaving the empty People Mover tracks in the middle of the land. The final addition that was part of New Tomorrowland was Innoventions, which opened in November 1998, a technology showcase in the former location of Carousel of Progress, featuring mascot Tom Morrow. Overall, New Tomorrowland was not well received and is partly to blame for the current state of Tomorrowland. Currently the Innoventions building, the Magic Eye Theatre and the People Mover track sit empty, leading many to hope that New Tomorrowland will receive another refurbishment soon. Mickey's Toontown opened in January 1993, completed by 1994 when Roger Rabbit's cartoon spin opened. However, by 2019, Toontown was a shell of itself. The Jolly Trolley had closed in 2003, Goofy's Bounce House had lost its bounce, and Chip 'n Dale's Treehouse had lost its slide and acorn pit by 1998. In 2019, it was announced that Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway would be added to the land by 2022, although COVID would delay the opening. The whole land ended up closing in January 2022 to receive a complete refurbishment. When the land reopened on March 19, 2023, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway opened, adding a brand new attraction to that section of the park. Chip 'n Dale's Treehouse was converted into a green space, whilst Goofy's Playhouse became Goofy's How to Play Yard. Donald's Boat became a splash pad, and the land opened the new Centennial Park. The new Mickey's Toontown was a huge success and brought more guests to that area of the park. Shortly after Mickey's Toontown reopened, Disney began transforming New Orleans Square and Critter Country with the transformation of Splash Mountain into Tiana's Bayou Adventure. In September 2022, Eudora's Chic Boutique opened in New Orleans Square, replacing Le Bat and Rouge. On September 7, 2023, Tiana's Palace opened in the former location of a French Market restaurant, beginning Tiana's takeover of the area. It was in 2024 when construction increased when the Haunted Mansion closed in January to begin its queue transformation, along with a new Madame Leota themed store set to open by the end of 2024. In May, Critter Country closed down with a Briar Patch, half of Pooh's Corner, and later the Hungry Bear restaurant officially closing. Expected to open on November 15, 2024, Critter Country will reopen as Bayou Country when Tiana's Bayou Adventure opens. The Briar Patch will be rethemed to Raised Berets, whilst half of Pooh's Corner will become Louie's Critter Corner. The Hungry Bear restaurant will reopen as the Hungry Bear Barbecue Jamboree, loosely themed to the Country Bear Jamboree that used to be located in Critter Country, where the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh continues to exist. Once Tiana's Bayou Adventure opens on November 15, 2024, and the Haunted Mansion queue reopens, New Orleans Square and Bayou Country will be complete. Having looked back at every new blank land, a new Tomorrowland in the 21st century will only happen if a new major attraction opens and the land receives some aesthetic updates. Once New Orleans Square and Bayou Country reopen by the end of 2024, there's always a chance that New Tomorrowland will be the next new blank land announced for Disneyland. After all, we know that after Tiana's, the only new additions coming to Disneyland Park will be the Walt Disney and Magical Life animatronic show in 2025 and the Mandalorian update to Smuggler's Run in 2026. There's always a chance that the third New Tomorrowland could be announced to open in the next decade. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you want to see next on the Distory channel.